Hi, everyone. It's Matthew with Dr. Gene Technology, where we're here to help you throughout your technology journey career. And before we get too deep with today's topic, which is 5 ways to handle technical questions in an interview, even if you're not a techie, we want to remind you to be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. That way you are alerted for any new videos. Also, feel free to join our IT village. And this is where I am, as well as others like yourself who have questions regarding IT. And so you'll get some good mentorship there and answers that maybe you didn't get down here. And be sure to click down below this to comment on what you like, what you don't like, maybe questions you didn't get answered to and you want to get them here. Feel free to leave questions and comments down below, anything that was helpful. And lastly, be sure to rate and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you and others can help us build this community to something even better along the way. So again, 5 ways to handle technical questions in an interview. I've been in probably, I haven't really estimated it, but I'm guessing at least 100 interviews in the technical industry at all levels, from beginning all the way up to executive VP level. And I've seen and heard a lot of tactics questions, etc. And so I wanted to share those with you today based on my lessons learned and experiences regarding interviewing. So 5 ways to handle. First and foremost is you want to avoid dead space. So if you're asked a question and you don't have an immediate answer, one way to avoid dead space is to keep the conversation moving by repeating the question or perhaps ask for clarification. Now, it's a good point because the interviewer knows that you are seeking more details perhaps, but it also gives you time to think. And the interviewer knows this as well. But you never really want to leave dead space. You want to try to keep the conversation moving as best along. Even again, if you're not a techie or you don't know the technical question right away what the answer might be, just by asking for maybe some more detail or whatnot, the interviewer might lead you down a path that will help trigger something or help you formulate a response. So avoid dead space. Second is to learn the question type, meaning the type of question that the interviewer is asking you. And I found that it really comes down to 3 different question types that they're going to ask you. 1 is test, 2 is experience, and 3 is your hypothetical ways of how you would do things. So the first one is test questions. So if they're trying to quiz you, if you will, on a very right or wrong answer, which there are some interviews that are pretty much just that, right and wrong. If you don't know the answer, you want to try to give an answer that is adjacent to it, adjacent to what they're talking about. And so I've done that before, and I've gotten the interview as well as the job. So they might ask you, tell me what a class is in terms of object-oriented programming. And even if you don't know exactly, you can kind of come around it by describing at least, how object-oriented programming works, if that's the kind of job you're going after. And that might help in terms of maybe not specifying what the class is, but if you can get adjacent or around to what a class is, maybe start talking about methods, something like that, then you have a good shot at coming close to what the answer is, even if you don't know what it is, right? So again, these are 5 ways to handle technical questions in an interview, especially if you're not a techie and you really may not even know the answer. The second kind of question that you may be asked are experiential questions, right? They'll say, give me an example of a time of XYZ. And so the narrative that you want to kick back at them is perhaps a project you worked on. I would come at it 2 ways. One type, respond with a project that went very well, very successful, spend a little bit of time on that, but then spend more time on a project that did not go well. Maybe that wasn't even necessarily in your favor, and pick something that wasn't so perfect where you had to really troubleshoot and solve your way out of it. Because by doing so, it lets them know that you're able to troubleshoot, think over a methodology, etc. If you're new in the career field, if you're kind of a beginner and you don't really have any of those experiences, perhaps talk about a school project that you were in, perhaps if you're like an IT student or what have you, or maybe you had an IT course or technical course, what have you. You can talk about that. That's always expected, especially for a newbie, a beginner. And if you didn't really have anything in the technical sector, but you're trying to go for a job and you haven't had any technical education, which hopefully by now you have after watching all of our videos, you know how important that is to us. And then at least give them some experience you had in a different job where you had to troubleshoot your way out of it, right? So that's the experience type of question. And then the third one is the hypothetical, right? The interviewer will give you a situation, and what they're looking for is your problem solving skills. They want to know kind of what you would do, how you would get your way out of that situation. There's lots of examples that I've heard with this one, but the thing to know in the hypothetical type of question is to kind of play ping pong with them. You start formulating perhaps their question with another question. So if they say, for example, um, tell me how you would measure a project in IT. And your response might be, well, is it a traditional type of project or an agile type of project, right? So immediately they know, okay, he knows or she knows what they're talking about in terms of a hypothetical. And they'll respond, oh, it's an agile type of project, right? And so then you come back with a bit more detail. You say, okay, well, I would measure an agile project via XYZ, right? And so they're looking for your problem solving skills and your ability to kind of ensure that you narrow down rather than trying to get straight to an answer, right? So hypothetical questions to me are some of the best ones because they really can help you shine as long as you play ping pong with them, if you will, going back and forth and getting that hypothetical into something more nailed down, right? Because everyone can interpret a hypothetical question very differently. So by playing ping pong with them, asking them questions, giving them a response, back and forth, another question, give them the response, that's really going to help. I think help you shine, right? So those are 3 question types in terms of a test, experiential, or hypothetical type of question. So the next one is process versus correctness. And this is interesting because while we tend to think of an interview being everything being exactly right, where they are looking for a specific answer so that you can get this one job that's available that maybe 100 candidates are looking for. Some of the things they're looking for, as we mentioned in the question types, are the process of how you think, right? In other words, what makes it such that you are able to think of a certain situation or a scenario, and you're able to dictate to a degree how that process is going to happen based on how your mind works. So you may not necessarily come out with an answer if they ask you, you know, what is an IP address, for example. You can say, well, you know, if it's a version 4 IP address, you know, you can say it's so many octets. But if it's version 6 IP address, well, then there's more octets, right? And you can kind of show them how you're analyzing the situation as opposed to just coming with one straight answer with an assumption of a correctness, right? I will say that I think most interviewers and companies are looking to see more about how you think and their process as opposed to the exact correct answer. Not always the case, right? Many interviewers are looking for that one answer, but it really is just going to depend. So you really need to kind of maybe do both. You can kind of say, okay, well, an IP address, if I go traditional, right, is based on octets, right? You have your a certain amount of digits that you're going to be allocated. And however, we also know that there's IP version 6. And if we're talking about that, well, then we have a much wider range of IP addresses to consider, right? That we can consider. So it's just kind of a quick and easy example of you showing them, you know, your process of intent, right? And it just depends on really what they're looking for. But I will say a lot of them are looking more for process as opposed to just correctness, right? The fourth thing that I would do to help you with technical questions is to hold a mock interview, right? pull someone aside, somebody in the industry who kind of knows a little bit about IT. And, once you've done your research on the company, perhaps you can have them do a mock interview where they're asking you some questions that you may know and ones that you don't know, right? And so they can quiz you on the 3 question types. They can also help you see how you're performing just visually, right? Because body language is everything. Your hands, right? As you see me talking, also speak volumes as well. And so mock interviews are really helpful in terms of answering technical questions because it will show how you process, how your mind works as well, and what your answers are, right? So mock interview is very helpful. And lastly, example resources. And by that, there are plenty of resources available for you to go to, right? So for example, if you're interviewing for a developer's job, well, there's a book out there called Cracking the Coding Interview, which is really helpful. If you're going for an ethical hacker job, right, there are plenty of certified ethical hacking all in one book that's really helpful, as well as other types of materials. So it does depend on the job type and what you're looking for. Obviously, I'm just talking about development types. There's plenty of others. If you know the companies, are very heavy into project management and that's the job you're going for, well, then you might look at PMI in their website as a resource. But all of these tools, techniques, skills will help you handle the technical questions in an IT interview, and hopefully you get the job. So best of luck. As a reminder, click the like button, leave us your comments, let us know what you'd like to hear more of. Also, click the subscribe button and the bell button so that you're immediately alerted anytime a new video is published. Be sure to join our IT Village, which is the link to communicate with others within our YouTube channel over on our platform so that you can get answers to your questions. And lastly, in the upper right corner of our YouTube channel, click the free download of How Much Can I Make in IT?